Hello everyone, this is Shauna from DisruptApps, and I want to give a presentation on a project I'm working on. And if you work in tech or science, they like to give these goofy names, so I just made up a name called Project Amorphic Mesh, a p2p or peer-to-peer browser and file sharing system. And amorphic kind of means like it has like a substance, like an entity that has a loose type of structure, kind of like maybe think about an amoeba. It's there, but it's in a gelatinous form that can change shape. And mesh, mesh is inspired from mesh network. So you can kind of get a feel for what I want out of this project. So let's get into it. So my motivations for development, and I'm taking both a developer and end user approach. Now first, for the end users. People should have an alternative system to communicate with each other other than what we have right now, and get away from this tri-crop that we have now. Make a browsing rendering peer-to-peer system with no strings attached. Make a browsing rendering peer-to-peer system with no AI, no invasion of privacy, no data collection, no constant UI UX changes for end user engagement, and no bullshit. A return to simplicity. Browsers are becoming just another sales funnel, monetization tool, and to shove AI down our throats. And I feel that needs to end, or we need to have an alternative. Now, for developers. For decentralists and open source developers who want to build their own browser from scratch, line by line, so they know the code to have a baseline to work from. To simplify code and software structure as much as possible. Make it so that just one decently skilled programmer can build and or modify it. Get away from over-complex code, proprietary technologies, and end gatekeeping practices. Get away from big tech corralled technologies and open sourced projects. Include built-in encryption to bolster security, and to deal with these crappy bots, especially these AI scraping bots. Oh my goodness, those things really chap my hide. Now for personal reasons, because I want to, because I can, and to create an AI free and private system for people to browse with each other, their files, and communicate. And everyone complains and gripes about how big tech and the internet sucks, but no one wants to do anything about it. Well, I want to do something about it, and I've got the skills and experience and the time to do so. Now, focusing more on the end users. Let's, in today's world, communication online between people starts most often with their web browsers. I mean, what do you do when you fire up your computer, your laptop, or your smartphone? You're going to use a web browser to communicate. That's where it all begins. We have a digital oligopoly of technologies and their options. So taking a look at what we have out there, we've got Chrome, and it's by Google. Now, it's not open source, and Chrome is considered proprietary, but it's built off Chromium, which is open source. We have Edge, which is Microsoft's product. It's not open source, but it's built off Chromium. And again, Chromium itself is open source. We have Safari by Apple. It is not open source, but it is built off WebKit, which is open source. And then we have Brave, which is owned by Brave Software Incorporated. It is built off Chromium. And then we have Opera, which is Kunlun Tech. And I did a quick research on it. It's some Chinese tech company, and it is built off of Chromium. So all these web browsers are owned and maintained by big tech companies. But we also have Firefox, and that's by Mozilla, the Mozilla Foundation and Corporation. And it's built off Gecko. So it's open source too. So this is what end users have to play with. Basically Chrome, Firefox, and Edge. But we all know that these browsers, especially Chrome and Edge, collect your data. Google, Microsoft knows all your history and habits, and who knows what they're doing with your data. And real quickly, I didn't want to forget Internet Explorer, but that thing has kind of, gone the way of the dinosaur, but it's still out there. But getting back on track, since they own the browsing technologies, they are building it to suit them, not you. And people need to realize if you're not paying for something, you are the product. Now with AI, no one knows what they are doing and feeding into their AI systems, when you use your web browser. Web browsers are now being used as another way to shove AI down our throats. Web browsers are now being used as sales funnel and, attention seeking, the attention economy. Why? It's a web browser. What people need, I feel, is an alternative browser that gets back to what a browser should be. A browser and nothing more. It just gets you files and communicate from A to B. That's it. No AI this, no AI that, no invasion of privacy, no data collection, no sales funnel, no attention grabbing. And simplicity. Oh my gosh, do I wish there was simplicity in web browsers again. And a company who is transparent with their practices and technologies. And that's what I want to strive for with my company, DisruptApps. Now, for developers and webmasters, maybe for you developers out there, you have wanted to build your own web browser from scratch like myself. But we're just not happy with being forced to choose from 2 or 3 styles of shoes that don't fit. And you'll find out what I mean in a minute. As mentioned before in the For End Users section, we have a digital oligopoly of technologies and their options to choose from to make our own quote-unquote web browser. Once again, we got Chrome. It's not open source, considered proprietary, but it's built off the Chromium's open source code base. We have Edge, Microsoft, not open source, built off Chromium. Safari, Apple, not open source, built off WebKit. Brave and Opera and so forth. So right now, if you want to build your own, where I'm going with this is you're going to have to play by their game if you want to build your own web browser. And if you looked into doing this before, web browsing engines are open source. With Chromium, it's open source, but it's overseen by Google. You can download the source code and alter it, but you must adhere to their licensing agreement. And like here, I'll just stick with this for now, but you got Chromium, and this is the link that I found, and you've got to look through their licensing agreement. And redistribution in binary form must produce the above copyright. So at the very least, you got to look at this and abide by it, which is probably not asking a whole lot, but still. Now looking at WebKit, it's open source too, and it's overseen by Apple. So, you're going to play by Apple's games. So let's look at WebKit here. So look at here at the licensing for WebKit. WebKit is open source software with portions licensed under the LGPL BSD license and GNU library. And you got to scroll through all this. You got to spend time to read it. If you want to, even attempt to do your own web browser, you got to figure out if you can do it or not and what you had to adhere by. So the way I see them is, these web browsers they're open source, but they're gate-kept to a degree because they're overseen by Google and Apple. So like I said, you got to read through the licensing agreement and try to decipher what the hell all this legalese gibberish means. And, my question is, you can use it, but what happens if you make something that the gatekeepers don't like? What are they going to go after you? And, basically the world has a a tri-crop, 3 crops of browsing technologies. You've got Chrome, WebKit, and Gecko. And really quickly here, pulling up a Wikipedia page, you have a comparison of browser engines. And let's see here, you've got WebKit, status is stable. You've got Blink. I've never heard of Blink. You've got Gecko, which is Mozilla. Goanna, I've never heard of that, but until I researched this. NetSurf, Servo Experimental, and you've got Discontinued, and you've got Trident, which is Microsoft, and you've got Flow, which is, so basically, there's not that many web browsing technologies out there, and you're stuck with basically the tri-crop because everyone basically either uses Chrome or Edge or whatever, so. Okay, moving on. Building a browser and a rendering engine is no easy task, given the advanced development from the original HTML protocol since around the 1990, and all the technologies that have arose or adapted APIs like CSS, JavaScript, PHP, C#, Ruby, Python, Go, yada yada, and all the frameworks like Bootstrap and Node.js and Angular and React and, a whole ecosystem out there blew up around it. So building a browser rendering engine would be a huge task. And let's look, let's look at a GitHub repo for Chromium. So pulling this up, looking at the GitHub, you're looking here on the left, you have all this stuff here. Looking here at just one page, this is the tree of it. And it's like, let me scroll down here, and just looking at the Chromium itself, this is enormous. And then my next point that I'm going to click here on my presentation, where do you even start? You need an entire dev team who are specialized to do real meaningful work on this project. So, yeah. So if you're a lone developer and you want to build your own quote-unquote web browser from scratch, you'll just wind up doing projects on things like Visual Studio with like WinForms web browser or WebView 2, or you're doing a Chromium-based project using something with like Electron.js. And I've done both and fiddle around with both in my spare time. And right here, I'm going to show you a quick cheesy web browser that I developed a few years ago in my spare time, and this is something that I built on my own, and I'm just going to do a quick live demonstration to show that it actually works. So this is the web browser that I built. I think I built it off of WebView 2 and C#, and so I'm just going to type in some stuff, and it works. This is the desktop. I had a project called Mingler Suite that I played around with a few years ago, and you're looking at my browser that I built in real time using the real internet. So, it works, and let me do another website here real quick. Let's go to old school Yahoo and see what happens. So, as you can see, it's a legit thing that I built, but it looks simple. That's the way I wanted to do it. It was have something simple, and it has back buttons and stuff like that. Anyhow, let me close that out. And I built that in C# WinForms in WebView 2 back in 2022. So I did it a few years ago. So as a lone developer, you can build your own projects, but you're just going to have to hope that like Microsoft and Chromium, and Electron.js aren't going to do anything fishy with the code. Let me pull up the Electron.js here, like WebView, Contents View. If you develop with Node.js and Electron, you'll be familiar with this kind of stuff. But this is how you can do a HTML browsing system within a Electron.js project. So But yeah, you can go line by line through all the source code, and if you want to go line by line through like no C# or Microsoft, but do you really want to do that? I mean, you're going to have to put a lot of trust into Chromium and Microsoft and the Node and all that stuff. So, yeah. And getting to webmasters and webmistresses, and for us who run our own servers and run our own shop, web bots are a huge headache. And goodness, I'm going through this right now. These web bots, especially these AI bots, they eat up your server bandwidth, and you've got to take measures to block them and to mitigate them. And it's such a pain. It's such a hassle that we've gotten to this point. And, they steal your website's info. They steal your data, and they steal your code without permission. And this is infuriating. It's insulting. And yeah, I know the internet is an open technology, and web scraping is nothing new. It's how we have search engines and index pages. But what companies are doing right now to get AI for their large language models is insulting, and it's like akin to plagiarism and theft. This code doesn't write itself unless you're, using ChatGPT or whatever. But, people spend their time learning how to code or writing their poetry or writing articles. And, when some AI scraper comes in and takes it and shoves it in their model without asking, you have to go in with robots.txt or do your htaccess files, where you got to, set up your own login system to prevent AI from going in and taking your stuff, or web scrapers. So with that, and my experience in doing full stack web development, my tech skills and so forth, I've decided to set out and build my own peer-to-peer browsing rendering server platform from scratch using C++. And yeah, it's a huge task, but it's something I'm up to doing. So, and when I get it all figured out, tested, and working, I will teach people how to build it and run it. So I set out designing some initial alpha requirements. Okay, for end users: privacy, security, encryption, ephemeral state option. And what ephemeral state option means, your browsing history isn't tracked. You go to a page or a file, it doesn't record it. It's erased. It never logs it in the first place. No tracking, no tracing, no data collection, no AI, no sales funnel, no device fingerprinting, none of that. Peer-to-peer capabilities, simplicity, Windows and Linux. For developers, simplicity, that's a big one. Reduced code complexity, excellent documentation, destroy gatekeeping, one developer required, get away from big tech as much as possible, and let's go over the technologies that I required. C++. I wanted to go with C++ to get away from big frameworks and huge frameworks like Node or whatever, and let's go with a non-proprietary technology. A GUI library, a graphical user interface library. And I know I'm somewhat contradictory here, but if you're working with C++, to do a good UI, you're going to have to use a third-party library, and like I said, I wanted to get away as much possible, but this is a not an ideal world, but I had to do the best with what is out there, and I have a good idea of which GUI library I'm going to use. Network protocol: SFTP, FTPS, SSH, SSL, PGP, SSL, TLS. It's to be decided. Eventually, when I get farther along in the project, I'm going to need to decide which of these protocols is going to be the best fit. And I'm going to do my own research on this and my own testing. And at that time, I'll probably reach out to a networking person and someone good in network security to help me with that final decision. So I'm going to have an inbuilt one-time encryption pad system. And real quick on that, if you're familiar with Ghidra, there's a reverse engineering software out there called Ghidra that can potentially decrypt private and public keys. So doing a one-time encryption system is going to be paramount. I plan to use familiar syntax from web development, from like CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. And so basically, if you know how to read HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and if you know how to parse HTML or XML, it's going to be easy for you to understand how the parsing and rendering engine works. So the current state. So I just started on this project last week on top of making videos, so I don't have a whole lot done. And so right now I just have a basic UI with some text and images as placeholders. The text is both hard-coded as well as pulled from a text file in the domain or the file structure, and the images are in a project folder. So let me show you here what I have so far. Let me bring it up. You can see here's some code that I've been working on, and you can see what the GUI library that I'm working with. So let me go ahead and run it real quick, and it's building the project. Give it a second, and here we go. And you can see here's the screen, here's the browser, and it minimizes and it maximizes, and as you can see it collapses properly. And I have some pictures here. Let me scroll down. So let me expand the page. So basically, all this lorem ipsum dolor, all this stuff right here that you're seeing is being pulled from a text file. So I've already have that, figured out. And scrolling down here, the purple box is just for layout purposes, but this image is being pulled from the folder within the project. And then here's just some extra images, and this is just basic rendering, basic layout right now. And then up here at the top, you can see the menus. You got settings, history, favorite, peers, p2p files, serving, about, and then like I have a dark theme, light theme I'll eventually do. You have history, delete history, ephemeral mode. Do you want to turn on ephemeral mode? File cache mode. Do you want to turn on browsing file caching mode? Delete cache files, how it works. So, favorites, edit favorites, delete favorites, peers, where you can edit your peer list, delete your peer list, peer-to-peer files. This is having to deal with files that you may want to serve with your friends on the system. So if you remember back in the day, like Kazaa, and I think it was Shazam, and Emule and eDonkey, so that's kind of what I also envision on that. So, and then up here on the tools button section, you've got a refresh, you have a back and a forward, and up here you're gonna have a basically kind of like a URL bar that'll function the same way. And then you have a favorites button over here on the right, add to favorites, and then you have a history and a settings, a peers, and serving. This is an initial idea for a layout, and some people may like it, some people may not, but for right now it's good enough. But I'm going to be working with this project and doing all the work on it. And so basically, yeah, go ahead and close this out, close out this program. So like I said, basic UI, and you can see where I'm going to go with this. Eventually more features and functionality will come, but right now this is to get started. So at this time I'm not really seeking any assistance on the project, but when it comes time to determine the network protocol, I probably will seek some consultation on that. So really quick, going over the development stages. This is a massive project that will be done in small steps. Build the browser UI, user interface. Build the file parser and rendering engine. Implement the encryption system. Determine best secure network protocol. Test the app between computers in my private LAN and server. Implement file sharing serving capability. Test file sharing capability. Build the installer. Look for alpha testers who believe in what I'm doing. Debug, test, get feedback, and iterate, iterate, iterate. And so with that, that is the project Amorphic Mesh, an overview of it. And once again, I am Shauna Brooks. That's my contact information. And this is Disrupt Apps. And thank you for your time and attention. Bye-bye.